You are about to enter the Cyber PD podcast. Cyber School Pedagogy lives here. Hello and welcome to episode 19 of the Cyber PD podcast. Hosting today are me, Agora Middle School PD coach John Thomas, and my friend and colleague, Agora Elementary School PD coach Kelly Quackenbush. To those who look for us every week, I do want to apologize about the gap between episodes. It was state testing season here in Pennsylvania, so that made it difficult to get episodes out. But we are back today with an exciting episode. Kelly, why don't you tell our loyal listeners about today's episode?
I would love to, John. It is so great to be back. I feel like it's been a pretty long hiatus between recording episodes, so being back is awesome. Today, we're going to be talking about how to prevent the summer slide in reading. And joining us to discuss this, we have three Agora reading specialists. We have a reading specialist from the middle school, Michelle Tilsner, and two reading specialists from our elementary school. We have Lisa Samar and Janet Whippo. Michelle, Lisa, and Janet, welcome to the show.
Hello. Hello. Thanks for having us.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for coming, ladies. Great guests make great episodes, so I'm sure we'll have an awesome episode today. Michelle, I want to start with you with the definition of what summer slide means. So what does that term mean, and why should it be a concern to parents and students?
Hi there. So summer slide is where research has shown that over the course of the summer, when students do not read or read enough, that they take a slide with their reading skills. And so when they come back to school in the fall, there's a large impact from that. And so many times these students are now behind grade level, or whatever gains they made over the course of the previous year, they've now lost. And so over time, that really can add up for our students. And we see that those students have lower reading abilities. And so parents should definitely be concerned, since this is something that they can work on with their students over the summer. They can have them read. And really, it could be as little as 15 to 20 minutes a day where they could have their students read over the summer, so that this slide that does occur or could occur does not.
Interesting. And I can understand how that would happen without daily, or at least close to daily, reading practice. How have you seen this affect middle school students specifically?
So really, because this can happen over time, the older students have now had many years, possibly, of these losses over the course of the summer. And so that just compounds. And over time, we see middle school students who are now multiple grade levels behind, because any gains they would make during the course of the school year are lost over the summer, and this continues to add up. So by 6th, 7th, 8th grade, many of our students, unfortunately, are 2, 3, and 4 grade levels behind. And I also think sometimes that the older students think, well, I can read, I can see the words, I can read the words, but they don't recognize that, like any skill, they need to practice it. Just like with basketball, you need to practice to get better, and also even just to keep your skills. So therefore, sometimes the older kids, they don't practice. And so we also see that is affecting our older students. And unfortunately, we see those reading gaps as they get older, and they're just wider, the reading gaps.
Yeah, I can definitely see how it might be hard to recognize that you don't have that reading comprehension there. Like if I'm out shooting baskets, I can see like that one missed. But if I'm recognizing all the words whenever I'm reading, but just not getting that comprehension, maybe I think that oh, I can read, I just don't like to read. And then I don't want to practice. So what activities would you suggest that our middle school students do throughout the summer to avoid that summer slide so they don't get to that stage?
So I really think the biggest one is just to set aside time each day. And like I said earlier, it could be as little as 15 to 20 minutes per day. And research has shown 20 minutes a day over the course of the summer, you will not see that summer slide. So that's the first thing. The second thing, which I think is huge, is go to the library. We also see research has shown that it is mostly, or a lot of times, it's the lower income students who don't have the resources. They may not have books at home and those resources. And so therefore, a public library is a great option for students who don't have a ton of books at home. So use your library. Most libraries have some type of summer program where they offer book groups or they offer just resources for those kids. I also think it's really important to have kids read for enjoyment so that they are picking the books that they want to read, because it's so helpful for our students to be able to pick those books. They don't always get that option during the school year. I also think that it's helpful if a kid has a favorite book that they can reread it over the summer. That's another great way to practice your reading and especially your fluency skills. Audiobooks could be another great option. If you have families that are traveling in cars, they could rent an audiobook or download an audiobook, and the whole family can even listen to it. And then that could spur a lot of conversation around the story. And just that improves a lot of other skills, comprehension skills. And then finally, I know I do this with my family, but we love to play language games. It could be bananagrams or Scrabble is a great one, crossword puzzles. Even word searches are very helpful for students, especially with those vocabulary skills. And so there are a lot of just everyday games that families have in their homes that they could also play that would be helpful for students to improve their reading skills and also just to stop that summer slide.
I love all of those ideas for students, because not only did you just give us a lot of ideas, a lot of them were fun things. It wasn't sit down and read, answer comprehension questions or something that, when kids are thinking you have to practice reading over the summer, they're thinking about the same kind of reading they did during the school year. And that probably doesn't appeal to a lot of students throughout the summer, but the ideas that you just provided were much more, fun, and let them pick what they want and do it how they want to do it, and do fun games and crossword puzzles and play Scrabble. So those are a lot of fabulous ideas that our students can engage themselves in over the summer. Before sending them to the summer, how can our teachers at the middle school level set our students up for success and help encourage them to avoid the summer slide?
I think it's really helpful to remind students at the end of the school year that this is something that could happen to them, and that not only do you just have fun over the summer and relax, which is great, but that you also, like I said earlier, you need to practice those skills that you learned over the course of the school year. So I think awareness is the first thing that we as teachers really need to incorporate in our end of year activities. I also think that teachers could assign a packet. I mean, that could be helpful for some of our students who actually like that routine and they like to practice and do like a worksheet here and there. And also parents might enjoy that because they have something tangible that they could have their students work on. You could also have students keep a reading log over the course of the summer, and it could be done, online. It could also be done where they just handwrite what they're reading just to keep track of it. And then I also think that some reminders and some communication with families is helpful, just to also let the parents know that this is a thing, this summer slide, and that going to the library and just alerting them to some of the different things we said previously is really helpful for our families and our students.
All right. I think that what I hear from you there, Michelle, is a lot about differentiation. Like different students will need different activities. So some might need that trip to the library. A lot might need that. Some might need a packet. Some might need different things. But it's all about what they enjoy. So thank you for all of that. Now I would like to switch to Janet. So let's think about our 3rd through 5th graders right now. At this age, students are no longer in that learning to read mode, and they're now moving into that reading to learn mode. So how does the summer slide typically affect students at that level?
Well, a lot of the children that are in our school have spent the last year working really hard on learning all these different comprehension skills and strategies on how to learn the material that they've read, whether it be in science or history or the language arts. And they've learned all these new techniques. And they've, especially these 4th graders that are just starting. Well, yes, they learned them, but they don't have them automatic yet. And so if they take the 3-month break and then they come back in the fall, just like Michelle said, they are going to have to relearn how to do that. We use this little, the 5-finger questions to help you remember about the story, about, who are the characters, what's happening, when did this occur, those sorts of things. And if they're not practicing that, it's not going to be an automatic skill. And so it's important to do that. Many of the children, well, all of the children that I work with are already behind grade level. And so I see a lot of what Lisa sees with the K2 group. These kids are still learning to read. And so, especially for those children, they have to work even extra hard over the summer because now they finally have gotten to this point. But if they don't continue to practice their decoding skills and continue to learn these new vocabulary words, once the fall starts, now they've slid backwards.
That's excellent points, Janet. So I'm going to propose the same question to you that Michelle just answered from me. How can our teachers set these students up for success? What plan can they lay out to help the students enter summer ready to avoid the summer slide?
My biggest thing is read, read, read. No matter what it is. I really love what Michelle said about let the students choose. Choice is huge. Even in the beginning of the school year, I'll ask my students, what are your interests? And I try and choose books that they love. There are kids that they love animals. They love learning about them, every different kind. Some kids like to learn about the reptiles. Some kids like to learn about the fish. Some kids like the fuzzy, cute things. Just build on that with the kids. Not only can you let them choose their books, but then you can take that to an extension. Let's say that they wanted to learn about a certain animal. We'll take a trip to the zoo if that is possible. There's also virtual field trips you can go on. And with the elementary kids, parents are still really involved in their learning. And so just sitting and having a conversation or watching a video together and talking about things, really that language development is huge. And when you're talking about kids that are, behind, the language really plays a huge part in it. I know Lisa and I, and I'm sure Michelle has noticed too, the vocabulary development is a big part of kids having difficulty with reading. If they come across a word they've never heard of or never seen, they just stumble through it. Whereas if you're building that background of lots of vocabulary words, they're going to be like, oh, I know this word, and then they can say it and they can understand it in context. Furniture. I know that sounds like, oh, who doesn't know the word furniture? Believe it or not, there are a lot of children that don't know it is furniture because in their home, they don't refer to it as furniture. They might refer to it as the couch or the love seat or the sofa. But that's just a small example of why vocabulary is so important. So I think having a lot of conversations about whatever topics the kids choose to read is super important. The library, just like Michelle said. And I really like the fact that I bet you all libraries have summer reading programs that the kids can be involved in. They do read alouds, they have crafts. I know just in my small community, and it is really small, the library has a wonderful summer program. And then there are area businesses that are also pushing the literacy and having like a camp, a little reading camp where they do stories and they do crafts with it. Many parks do that as well. Literacy has really become a big thing in all the communities. So really all you need to do is just start looking for things. Also, many schools, their programs that they use online are available for the kids in the summertime. I know at Agora, we use Reading A to Z for some children, and that is available for our families to continue using this summer. And I've had, emails from parents that are so excited about it because once again, this particular program, it's choice with the kids. They can go into the reading room and choose the books that they want. There is Epic online that children can go to. So, not only you have the physical libraries, but you do have virtual libraries as well. Another one of my favorite things that I like to have kids do, and kids will balk at this, but even if they do it once a week, is journaling. Whatever you're reading, keep track of it. Write one sentence, just anything, because you're taking your thoughts from your mind and you're putting it down on paper, making it come through, or you're typing it. But that transfer, that transition is difficult for kids. And so the more that they can practice doing that and remembering sentences start with a capital letter, they end with a period, it has to have a complete thought, reminding yourself once a week over the summer makes a huge difference. Because when we get the kids back in 4th grade, I feel like a broken record. What do you need to put at the beginning of that sentence? So, this way they can go through it, and parents can encourage them to self-edit. So those are my favorite things, the library, the journaling, just reading. Those are just so important. And another thing I really like to do is experience stories. You go on vacation, write about it. Be willing to share that when you come back. I tell the kids, yes, you're moving on from me, but when you come back in the fall, send me an email. Let me know what you did. We don't have the luxury of seeing children face to face in a building. So when they come back in the fall, they come running to last year's teacher and give them a hug. But email is awesome. I'm still getting emails from children who I had like 3 years ago, just every once in a while. Hey, how you doing? How's your dog? That sort of thing. So I think it's important just to continue to encourage that over the summer to keep that communication going.
And it sounds like a lot of those suggestions, especially how much you emphasize, and you and Michelle both did this, is you emphasized student choice. And it sounds like a lot of that will make it be less about a chore or less like homework and more like something that they can enjoy doing. So do you have any final suggestions about how to make this be something that students can enjoy doing and be less like homework?
There is this one activity that is fabulous, and it has to do with the National Park Services. And 4th graders actually can get a free pass to all the national parks. They just have to go online and find it. But each park has these junior ranger badges that the kids can work towards. And, I realize that there are families that cannot travel across the country and go visit California. I know that. But you can look at what those activities are to earn a junior ranger badge. You could do it with your own family, design your own. It's just a fun thing to do. There's another activity where kids go and they're searching for, I can't even remember the name of it. Maybe one of you guys can remember, but they search for different things at different parks. It's kind of like a scavenger hunt. I hope you know what it is, because my mind at this point is just, I can't remember. But that's always been a favorite for families. Maybe somebody can jump in and help me out with that.
Are you referring to geocaching?
That's it. Thanks, Cal.
I am a fan of geocaching. Yeah, we have I think my family has like 250 caches that we found. So fun way to get out, and a lot of them do have, like, for example, one that we found was one of the last Indian massacres that happened in Pennsylvania. It was at a mass grave that we found this mass grave. I would have never known it was there, but it had this big story about what happened and who was killed and why the Native Americans were upset with the settlers, and it was just a fabulous thing. But yeah, it's real fun, and there's a lot of learning experience. Lots of great state parks here in Pennsylvania. I know we have listeners from all over the United States, but here in Pennsylvania, where the majority of our listeners are, we have like 22 state parks. I was just at one yesterday. Great places to explore and learn more about. So I love those suggestions, Janet.
I have another one. You made me think of this. Families, whether you go on vacation or not, whether you live in the city or the country, there are monuments all over with information that tells what it is. And, take a short walk, go up to these monuments, read them. There's lots of big words on them. So it's a great way to just initiate a conversation. It's simple reading. The kids don't even realize that they're actually working, that you might spend 15 minutes doing that, and there's your reading for the day, and you had conversation and you learn new vocabulary, and there you go. And it's not sit down and read your book.
And I could see history teachers like maybe encouraging that over the summer. Like, send me pictures of you beside these plaques that say different historical facts. Like, have a history teachers encouraging their students to do that. As a former history teacher myself, I would love to get like a pile of pictures of students next to those signs, because I'm always fascinated by those signs and like little things that happen around them. So that's a great idea.
Fabulous idea.
Oh, sorry, Kelly. One more thing, and I think Lisa probably uses this a lot. We have a program called Seesaw. It's like Facebook for classrooms, and it has been wonderful. The kids, when they go places, they will post pictures or draw pictures, and they can type something really quick of what they did. And I've been kind of trying to model that whenever I go away. I'll put a quick video up and pick something up. That's another fun way to practice communication. And especially in this digital age, it's a safe, family-friendly way to do that.
Absolutely. And I love those fun ways and great ideas for not only reading, but like John was just saying, for history or science, or, go across the curriculum and read about science, read about anything that you're interested in. I think it's an absolutely wonderful way to spend time in the summer. So finally, let's turn to Lisa. Lisa, we know that you are currently working with third grade, but you have a strong background with the kindergarten through second grade level. And those of us who know you personally also know that you have 4 children of your own, and you're very familiar with reading instruction, both from the parent and the teacher side. So in your opinion, what are major concerns for the summer slide for our youngest readers?
Well, that's a fabulous question. Very important to really back up to those primary levels and think about the fact that they are really forming some life habits. As young kids and young students, they're forming some life habits. So that habit and that ritual of having some daily reading in their life, whether it's during school time in the school year or in the summer, is so important. So it's a habit forming type of perspective that you want to think of that's going to then carry on as they get older and they're focused on more vocabulary and learning about the world around them as they are in the elementary and middle school ages. But for these young kids, it's reading for enjoyment. And it's not always an easy thing to read. So when you have kiddos that are already struggling with reading, and now you're giving them a big gap where there's no reading occurring for several months, there's just such a drop in that interest and that desire to read, because it's already hard, and now we've kind of stopped that skill, and that's going to make it even, more cumbersome in the future. So they're less likely to want to read for enjoyment. Reading isn't going to be fun. And this is the age where they're reading for enjoyment. And we want them to do that, to develop that foundation and that skill set in reading, so that as they get into harder reading text, longer passages, and develop that reading stamina and have that comprehension, it all flows together. But if you don't give them that opportunity when they're young, because you just have that big lull, that big gap in the reading, several months without having that experience, it really does affect that. So if you think about the brain, it's a muscle, and there's so many muscles and parts of your brain that are working toward reading. If you don't practice them, what happens, with any muscle in your body, it atrophies. any skill you have, like Michelle said, basketball, it drops down. You suddenly can't make that basketball hoop. You're like, whoa, I could do it backwards, and have all these points for my team months ago. And now I stopped practicing that skill and I'm starting all over again. And it's exactly the same thing with reading. So it drops their interest in books, this is the age you want to get that interest in reading, where they just love the stories and they're so much fun. So that if there are any skill sets within that are hard for them, it's almost those difficulties seem diminished because of the interest in the reading and the fact that they love pulling meaning from the story and hearing about these characters doing silly things and reading about dinosaurs because that's their favorite topic. So it's really, really important that they get into that daily habit and that continues over the summer, because if not, they have those weaker reading skills. Then the reading gets even harder. It becomes less of a natural part of their day and it feels more like schoolwork. And we don't want it to feel like that. We want it to feel like an opportunity, that these books are calling to me and that I then use these books to learn about the world around me.
Yeah, and I would say that gap would be more significant for those younger kids because as we know, like to us, an hour isn't to us older people. An hour isn't that long, but to a kid, an hour is like an eternity. So for us, 3 months might not be too long, but to a second grader, 3 months is a very, very, very long time. So for those kids in that K through 2 range, I with no reading at all, like you said, that not working that brain and practicing and building up those brain muscles is going to be more significant for them. But also more significant for them is going to be the role of the parents in encouraging that summer reading. So what do you think that K through 2 teachers can do that can get parents more involved over the summer?
Well, as Michelle stated, that awareness is so important to help parents be aware that this exists. This is a real thing. And so I always equivalent it to any skill. If your child is a gymnast and they stop practicing for 3 months, all of a sudden they can't do that walk over that they could so smoothly do before. And it doesn't matter what the skill is. Not everything is like riding a bike. I haven't rode a bike in 5 years. I just pick it up and I start riding smoothly again. The skill of reading, especially for K-2 students, is still so new that they don't know it like the back of their hand yet. Like we know how to ride a bike if we haven't rode a bike in 10 years. So you have to really educate the parents and build that awareness. In addition to building that awareness, sharing some information with them, a list of strategies that, we've all talked about lots of different strategies, and I'll share a few more in a moment, but sharing that list of strategies with the parents so that they know what to do when their child says, I'm bored. They know how to incorporate it into the day without it feeling like schoolwork, because not all kids want to do schoolwork over the summer. Some beautifully do have that desire, but many kids don't. They just need a break, mentally need a break. But that doesn't mean you have to 100% honor that break. They could still be, as Janet was saying, learning and writing and sharing experiences, and they're pulling in those skills without even realizing it, because to them, it's connected to something fun, an experience or a vacation or what have you. So it's funny that I have a lot of ideas of things that are running through my head that work so beautifully with K-2, and they really do with 3 to 5 and middle school. All through work so beautifully for helping parents understand, is to give them that arsenal of information after you've kind of shared with them the fact that this does exist and what it means to your child. It can actually, in the young grades, mean 1.5 years of drop in their skill set, because at this age, kids pick up reading so quickly and they're just on this roll. It's like the ball rolling down the hill. It just keeps gaining speed and speed and speed. But if you just suddenly grab that ball, it's not going to keep going where it was originally intended to go. And that happens with the reading. They just get on this, they're rolling. It's all falling into place and it's making sense. And then you just stop because school's over, we stop. And that's really the mindset we want to stop having, and embrace this idea of pulling it into, parts of our day that make sense, and to experiences that we are already having that you want to have over the summer that make sense. To pull it into. So by reading books about the place you're going to vacation at, those pamphlets that you pick up and you're reading and learning and talking and discussing. That is so valuable for kiddos at all ages.
I love those ideas, Lisa. And believe me, I can remember like it was yesterday when my kids were these K-2 ages, and summer days were filled with wet swimsuits, popsicles, play dates, sunscreen, just all the crazy fun of summer. But we need to get these reading, pieces of reading instruction in. So how would you recommend that parents fit small segments of reading instruction into busy summer days?
Well, there's always going to be some downtime. The kids are tired. They've been swimming for hours, or you're in the car driving to your next destination on your part of your vacation. So use that downtime as an opportunity for them to be flipping through and reading and enjoying a new book. It can be just that you take those books along every single place you go. My family, we have a lot of sports, a lot of activities, and there are always multiple books in my purse, in my car, in the trunk of the vehicles that we take. There's always books with us because there'll be a time where the kids just get bored with the activity. So use that downtime to really help. Parents can, it really starts with the parents having that example, leading with an example that reading doesn't have to just occur during the school year. You're reading your interesting book while they're swimming, and you're at the beach, or you're at the park and they're fishing. You're reading a book, and that modeling is going to go so far with them saying, you know what, that makes sense. Mom reads, I want to read. Dad reads, I want to read. Tell them about the story you're reading. Ask them about the story they are reading. Having conversations about that is really going to be important. And that's where that vocabulary comes in that Janet was talking about. But, just giving them a book to keep them quiet, 15 minutes, read your book. Now I'm going to go do something else isn't really going to have the richness to it that you really can have when you make it a fun part of your day. When you sit down at dinner and you talk about, oh, how was your sleepover? You went to so-and-so's cabin, and what did you do? Well, you have those conversations with your with your children about their experiences. So have those conversations with them about the books that they read as well. Tell me about your story. Do you want to go to the library and get some more books just like that they get to choose from?
I love all of these ideas. Absolutely amazing. Does anyone have any final thoughts on avoiding the summer slide that they'd like to share with our audience?
I do want to add one more that comes to mind for these younger kiddos. Having a book swap or a book exchange. These kids want to get together. They want to have play dates with their friends. Ask their friends to bring a book, and it can be a book that they're done reading or their favorite book. That kind of creates your own idea of a book club for young kids. And it's a great way to get books in the hands of your children. So in addition to the libraries, the virtual libraries, the, brick and mortar libraries your kids can go to, or buying books that your children can then own, it really gives them an opportunity to open up into some other areas, books that their friends are interested in. And it's a really great way to do that without any cost to you. If everybody brings a book, you put the books out on the table, everybody then gets to take one, and the book swap just continues. So that's something that a lot of young children can really enjoy.
That might be an idea that maybe the family coaches at Agora could embrace and maybe create something like that as sort of an Agora day out. I love that idea.
Absolutely. Yeah, the way that I get hooked on books is by hearing about my friends reading these fabulous novels that I never would have just grabbed on my own and gravitated to on my own. When I hear about how wonderful the author is and how these characters that I can relate to the experiences they're having, it makes me want to read those books. And it's just a great way, especially for any families that, we just can't afford books. Brand new books are so expensive, or maybe the books their child wants to read are not at the library because maybe our library is, we've already used and enjoyed all those books. We want some new ones. That's a way to get your hands on some new books.
And before we know it, our students are having conversations with each other about books rather than video games. And then all is right with the world. Thank you so much. I want to thank our 3 guests that so kindly volunteered their time and joined us for our podcast today. Janet Whippo, Michelle Tilsner, and Lisa Samar. Thank you so much, ladies, for joining us.
Yes, thanks to the 3 of you for joining us. And I would also like to thank you, our loyal listeners, for tuning into the show. Remember to subscribe to the show through iTunes or your favorite podcast catcher so you never miss an episode. For show notes, visit our blog at cyberpdpodcast.blogspot.com. While there, feel free to give feedback about the show or suggestions for future episodes. If you're enjoying the show, be sure to rate us on iTunes. The more ratings we have, the more exposure our show gets. And that will do it for this week. Remember, no matter where you are, or what you do, or whatever the time of year is, find opportunities to keep learning. Thanks for listening to the Cyber PD podcast. Tune in next time for more cyber pedagogy.